Hi guys, how are you? It's Ant here again. Right, today in this clip, I'd like to talk to you about location recording and what on mic and off mic sounds like, okay? Now, I'd love to be able to cover all sorts of things about location recording, but there's just so many things, it's very hard to get it into a short clip. So we're going to stick with the primary day one basics, if you like. And part of that is explaining what on mic and off mic means, okay? Now, to record something on mic means that you've actually got your actor in the field of the microphone and they're sounding rich and full and all the frequencies are there, okay? If you record somebody off mic, it means they don't sound as rich and as full as they could, and you'd probably end up having a lot of the room or the space or the location that you're recording in, you'd have a lot more of that than you really would like to have, because that can be quite hard to get rid of. We can do it to a degree, but it's ideal that it's not there, okay? Now, a little bit about where we're actually recording. We're in my house here in Kilsyth in the outer eastern suburbs of Melbourne, and we live in a period house and we don't have any carpet. We have hard floors and very high ceilings, okay? So where I'm really nice and close to the microphone now, I'm going to sound quite full, okay? It's going to sound pretty good. As I move further back, you're going to start hearing a lot more of the space, a lot more of the rooms, and you're going to hear what a lot of people call echo or reverb, which is more the case, okay? The sound of the location that you're working on, okay? So, as also part of your day one basics, the first thing you do when you actually frame up your shot is you get your boom swinger to drop the boom in, okay? And in comes the, whoop, there's the boom. That's the boom swinger's edge of frame. Okay, they know they can't go, if they go too far into the frame like that, they know they've gone too far. So they get their own mental meter of where they need to be, and then they know that's as far as they can go. Okay? So, as I said, if I move, oh, hello again. If I move a little bit further away from the microphone, you're going to hear the difference in location. Okay? So I'll take a good couple of steps back. Now, I'm probably about 1.5 meters away from the microphone. I'm probably still sounding pretty reasonable, but you're going to start hearing my sound bouncing off these walls, okay? I should mention at this point, I'm also wearing a lavalier. We're recording on the phone, and we are recording on a Zoom recorder as well too. So I might be able to give you examples in the clip of how each of those sound, all right? So I'm going to move a bit further back now, and you'll hear more of the room. Now I'm probably 1 to 3 meters away from the boom microphone, and that's going to be probably too far. You're probably going to be hearing all of these walls and the floor and everything that's bouncing off the ceiling as well too, okay? But the lav, if I talk on the lav for a minute, the lav's going to sound pretty good, okay? So that's something to keep in mind as well too, because in a situation like this, the lav is probably going to be a good alternative, all right? I'm going to move further back now, and we'll go back to the boom now. There we go. You can hear all the noise in the room. If I go all the way back. Okay, so this is now quite a long shot, and the boom is going to be useless. I would say the boom, the phone, and the zoom are all going to be useless. But the lav is actually going to be pretty clear, all right? Obviously, because it's right here. So if we go back to the boom again, I'm going to walk towards camera, and you're going to hear the difference in my voice as I keep on talking, as I go all the way back into the field of the microphone, and I start sounding pretty reasonable again. Okay? So things that you need to keep in mind about locations. Shooting in our house would be tricky because of how reverberant it sounds. But if you shoot in a house that's got lots of carpet on the floors and plaster walls and the ceilings are a lot lower, it's going to be dampened down. So it's going to be an easier location to shoot in. But when you go on location, you need to listen for things that are happening in the space. Like if you shoot in a kitchen, there's probably going to be a fridge, okay? And other things that are going to make a noise are things like aircon, fluorescent lights, all manner of other things like that. Ideally, to get rid of that noise, turn them off. But you can't do that on every single location. So your way out of that is to record what's called a buzz track, okay? And a buzz track is recording on the boom microphone, the same microphone that you're recording all your dialogue with, a good slab of just nothing, okay? So get your crew to shush for 15 to 30 seconds, ideally, And if you've got just that nice long piece of recording of just your buzz track of your room or whatever location you're in, that could save you in your sound edit if you have to cut a noise out or a line out and replace it with a buzz track. That could actually work really well. So I'll give you a bit of an example now. So our crew was just shush, and we're recording nothing. But that little bit of nothing could really, really help you with all sorts of things, okay? So it's a lot of things to consider there, but don't be scared by stuff because you can get some really, really good sounds just by working in the space that you have. I mean, for example, with the feet on the floor, a way to fix that is if the floor isn't in shot, pop some carpet down, because then you won't get feet talking over your dialogue, okay? You'll just have it all very nice and smooth. All right. Now what we're going to do now is we're going to move outside, and we'll talk about some bits and pieces outside and what can happen out there. Hello. Right, here we are in my backyard. Now, I am the first to admit that the composition of this shot is not great. However, the sun's beating down from over there, and this was kind of the best angle I could get for the moment, considering it's going to rain sometime this afternoon. So for our purposes, this will just do fine. Okay. Now, same setup as I had inside. I've got the boom shooting from over the top of the phone, a lav mic, and also a zoom recorder there. Okay, so I'm going to do exactly the same thing as I did before, but you're going to be hearing different things here that could be problematic when you actually come to do bits and pieces. Okay, now you can hear the traffic out on Mount Dandenong Road, you can hear the wind in the trees and the birdies, and there's also somebody over that way who's mowing their lawn. Okay. So a whole bunch of different things that are out of your control here on location that you can't do anything about. Okay, so different problems altogether. All right. Now the reason I'm looking down, I should say, is because our 9-month-old cavoodle puppy is just investigating my MacGyver setup here, which I'll show you a picture of a little bit later on. And if you don't know who MacGyver is, ask your parents or look him up. Okay. Anyway, I digress. Moving on. So, same deal. Standing in front of the boom. And if I'd step a little bit further back, okay, I'm going to be a little bit off mic here, but still usable. This is probably more a realistic distance than what's going to happen when you're out on location, okay? Still quite usable. If I go further back, not quite as usable, okay? You're going to hear more of the background noise and less of me. In fact, we're probably pretty much going to be on the same level, okay? But the lav will be picking me up really, really, really quite well. But the zoom, the phone and the boom won't be, all right? So if I take a further step back and we can listen to what it'll sound like on the boom. This is going to be completely useless from a boom perspective, okay? It's just too far back, it's too far off mic, it's almost like it's being mic'd from the next suburb, all right? Again, if you want to hear this on a boom, everything's going to come up, and everything is just going to be too loud, and we're just going to have to try to get rid of it, okay, which is tricky. So if I walk back towards the camera again, and I'm talking as I'm walking, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, here I am, back on mic, in front of the boom, and you can hear the difference between on mic and off mic, okay? Now remember what I was talking about inside of recording a buzz track? Well, outside it's even more important, because that guy with the lawnmower may stop. So it'd be great to actually have 15 to 30 seconds of just to fix any problems that you've got when you're actually editing bits and pieces together. Because if you think of standing in front of VCA on St Kilda Road, you think of how noisy it is there, with traffic and trams and pedestrians and potentially police choppers and maybe sirens and things like that. If you have your establishing shot and then you go to a 1 shot, another 1 shot, a 2 shot, establishing shot, that's, I've lost count, however many cuts, all the sounds are going to change as you go, okay? So if you've got a nice long buzz track that you can pop underneath that, it's a good way of potentially fixing any problems of sounds disappearing and coming and going on each of the cuts, okay? You'll probably have a good way to get out of things if you've got a nice long buzz track underneath it, okay? So again, locations outside can be really tricky. Record a buzz track, save yourself the hassle, okay? Now something else I wanted to talk to you about lavs. Lavs are great, as you heard if I was back there. And quite frankly, when your budgets increase and your experience increases and you hire a soundo, more often than not, a good soundo will record with the boom and lavs on each of your performers, okay? Because then we can blend between them in the mix if need be, okay? One of the disadvantages sometimes of lavs is they can sound right up here, okay? And they sound like an episode of Big Brother. And that all kind of just sounds a bit wrong, or it can sound wrong. We can lessen that to a degree, and there are certainly tricks to make it not sound quite so much like this. But ideally, a good boom, where you can, location may not allow for it, but a good boom will always sound better, okay? Now, the other thing to think about with lavs as well too, if your actors are acting all over the place and they're running from one place to another, or they're fighting, or there's something like that, or maybe even some form of clothing that they're wearing as part of their costume, it might do this. It might rustle all over the place, and I know we're listening to the lav at the moment, it might rustle all over the place, and you're going to have all sorts of problems here over dedicated lines, okay? So that's another reason to do a boom and a lav at the same time, okay? So, yes, that pretty much covers everything that I can think of off the top of my head out here. Let's head back inside, and I'll talk to you about a couple of other things before we sign off on the clip. Okay, we're back inside in my home studio now. I just wanted to go through the things that you need to take away from this clip, all right? Number one, recording with the boom. Make sure you get it as close as you possibly can to your actors and get a nice on-mic recording, okay? You've heard the difference between what on-mic and off-mic sounds like, and I can assure you that working with something that is on-mic is a hell of a lot easier than working with something that is off-mic, okay? And it will chew up so much time trying to fix something that's never possibly going to come up that great, okay? So make sure that you can get it as on-mic as you possibly can, and just do your best you can, all right? Number two, working with lav mics, make sure that they are clipped on nicely and you're not getting loads and loads of clothes rustle on anything that your actor is wearing, because sometimes we can fix clothes rustle, but not every time, okay? So while you think you may have the line, it's like, it's okay, they're recording with a lav. If it's covered with rustle, 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 the line might be unusable, okay? So just make sure that it's mounted nice and cleanly, and it's not rustling on anything, all right? Now, number three is a thing called wild lines, okay? Now, I didn't cover this outside, but what wild lines are, that's the process of recording the dialogue without shooting it on location, all right? Now, I'll tell you the reason why you might want to do this. If you're in a really noisy location, like on the side of a road or an amusement park or busy shopping centre or something like that, and it's just this cacophony of noise and you're barely hearing your actors, after you've shot the scene and you've got the shot you want visually, just get your actors away from the main source of the noise and record the scene again with your actors wild, just on the audio recorder, okay? Now, this is an alternate to ADR, because ADR, which stands for Automated Dialogue Replacement, or Automatic Dialogue Replacement, when you get the actor in and they say their lines again and you record them in the studio, some actors hate ADR. They really, really do. So they get all flustered by everything about doing it, okay? And there's a lot of tips and skill to recording ADR. It's not as simple as just sticking them in front of a microphone and getting them to say it again, okay? A much easier process is to record them as wild lines. And another reason for doing it, the scene is still in their head, okay? So more often than not, you'll get the same take, or maybe even better, the same performance, I should say, or maybe even better, because you've got it right after they've said it on location, okay? If you get them in for ADR, it could be as much as 5 or 6 weeks later, and they're just not in the same headspace when they're performing, all right? So wild lines can really, really, really save you, okay? So that's something that you should really think about. Using wild lines in conjunction with the nice buzz track that you recorded as well too, it may well save your scene, and it will sound great, okay? So something to keep in mind. Okay. Number 4, I am not a natural on-screen presenter, which is probably obvious. And number 5, I'm desperate for a haircut, and I cannot wait for this lockdown to end. Any other questions you'd like to ask? I believe we have a Zoom meeting coming up fairly soon. And so have a look at the clip. Have a think about what you might want to ask me, and hopefully we'll be able to cover things there. Thanks very much for watching, and talk to you soon.